Very good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for joining in. Welcome to part 2 of the Alpha Project Manager. I'm not sure how many of you were available on the part 1 webinar. My name is Saurabh Parikh. And it was very interesting session for me, at least, because there were a good amount of Q&As last time. And it was a great collaborative conversation. So, couple of things before we start. Those who are new to this, one, I muted all of you by default here. So in case you want to ask a question, please note it down somewhere in your brain, in your mind, in case you're traveling or somewhere else. Just put it down at the end of the probably next 30 minutes. We'll have a Q&A round, and I'll just raise your hand on the screen, and I'll unmute you. Right. So welcome once again. Thanks for joining in. Let me give you a quick recap of what we covered last time. Before I give you a quick recap, let me just quickly go back and see if my communication is okay, if I am audible there. Let me just unmute, let's say Nandan. Nandan, am I audible enough to you? Hey Sai, am I audible to you? Ceci, am I audible to you?
Yes, yes.
Great, okay, thanks. I'll just mute. Just wanted to confirm, thanks. All right. So let me give you a quick recap of what we covered last time. So if you look at the topic itself, it's a pretty interesting topic, and I really thank to the great personality, and I'm going to display his name. The name of the personality is none other than Andy Grove. Many of you would have heard about him, those who are PMP certified, obviously, those non-PMP certified project managers on this call. So one of the great authors from Velocity Press, and it's basically he's the owner of this, and he prints a lot of books on the certification, generic project management. And one of the book that I read was a completely different book called Alpha Project Manager. So what Alpha Project mean is what those 2% project managers can do that remaining 98% can't or don't, right? Either of this. So it's a very interesting topic for me to dwell into. And then I was going through this, his study, which has been done. So the book is nicely published in terms of surveys that you would know. Last time, those who were present would have gone through, and those who are not, know it's new. Those for them, for whom people who are new to this today, it's done with participants about numbers in terms of 860, if I'm not wrong, and many of them were non-alphas, and so they actually proved it that almost like 98% were non-alphas and 2% were alphas, right? So there were various different areas that we covered last time. So those who can see my screen, there are 8 different dimensions that we covered. The first one was attitude and belief. The second one was communication. The third one was alignment. The fourth one, approach and organization. Fifth, focus and prioritization. Sixth, issue management. Seventh, relationship and conflict. And last was the leadership. So amongst this, we could, within a limited period of time, we could cover the first 3. So just giving you a bit of a background on the very quick first 3. At first one was attitude and belief, where the question was asked, I have a responsibility, but no authority. Now there was the pointer which was given to the project managers, and if you want to really look at the kind of the responses that we got, the alpha said, just give me a moment. Let me just hide some of these icons on my laptop, guys. Sorry about that. Just bear with me for a while. Yep, sorry. So the bigger screen. So look at the numbers on the survey. So alphas average 89%. So 89% people or project managers said, I have enough adequate authority to manage the projects. And the non-alphas said, I've got only 47% of the, 47% of the people said we do not have enough or adequate authority to manage the projects. Whereas if you look at the business sponsors, then the complete senior management or business sponsors view was completely different. They said, 87% of they said they do have it. I mean, the project managers have the necessary organization authority. And even the managers of non-alphas also said similar thing, which shows that as PMs, are we underconfident about ourselves, about our lack of understanding or lack of authority? So that was a kind of cast in stone, and maybe that's a sample that I wanted to display to you. I'm not going to take too much of a time on the revising the whole presentation that we did. On the communication aspect, there was a question or a survey question which was asked: how would you rank this project manager's overall communication effectiveness? And there was if you are the project manager, I am the project manager. When I rate myself, I say, hey, it's I'm quite effective communicator. So 84% of the alphas say that, yeah, I'm a great communicator. Where you ask your stakeholders, the stakeholders have a different opinion altogether. The stakeholders of alpha communicators said only 80%. That's still a question mark, because I would have expected 90% plus. And stakeholder of non-alpha would say 49%, which means it's a huge amount of improvement when you ask somebody, hey, how is your communication effectiveness? Right. So that was another eye opener. I'm not going to give you the direct pointers, but I hope you understand my pointers behind this message. Right. The third one that we covered was primarily alignment. The alignment in terms of the project that you have today, how this project came into a picture altogether. So I'm talking about a selection of the project within organization. So you would have already known the projects are selected based on various criteria and methodologies in organization. Let's say if I've got 10 different projects to do as a part of my portfolio, and I'm the let's say CEO or CEO of an organization, why should I select only 5 projects over 100 projects that I could do? So of course, the KPIs of the portfolio which drive the projects, which ultimately have to be aligned to the vision, mission, goals, objectives, and strategies at the top. So your portfolios are aligned to the strategies at the top, which are driven by market conditions, right? So your organization strategies are driven by market, right? Driven by competitor, but driven by customers. And the stakeholders inside and outside, they decide which projects are going to be are actually in practice beneficial to them or not. So alignment, we said, is pretty important aspect. And the survey question was, is your primary project considered highly strategic to your organization? And the result, 60% of number says yes. On alpha side, 41% non-alpha said yes. This is real alarming situation. That means as PMs, probably we do not know what our vision, goals, objectives, and strategies of the organization at the top level are. Or we do not know what kind of a portfolio which has been run at the top. The question that I ask as a PM to myself, am I supposed to know this? And the answer varies. So my answer is, Saurabh, do you have a choice? But to know this, I'll leave your choice with you. But most likely, the PMs should know the organizational vision, mission, goals, objectives, and how his or her project can align to these strategies which are carving out from it. We go to the interesting slide called the PMO. So the question was, does your organization has a PMO? And the response from both alphas, non-alpha, almost equal and 44%. So that means we still have a gap. A project management office or a program or a portfolio management office, so called, I use the word called P3MO, which probably doesn't, either it exists but unaware, or it exists but people are not following it rigorously, or it doesn't exist at all. So this was a nice thing that we spoke about last time. The last one we ended up was with the team alignment, and the question to your team members was, what is your personal motivation to see the project succeed? And fortunately, the alphas said 96% and non-alphas are 79%. So non-alphas still, I personally feel, still lacks, no doubt, but alphas, good job, have a personal motivation to see the project succeed. When I talk about team members, that means project manager have got that cohesive and high performance team which has been built, and the only thing which is needed is to keep them continuously on listening board, regularly seek the reviews and feedback from them, from your stakeholders, not only for your team members. Today, what we will do is we move ahead as a part 2, right? So this was a recap for part 1. As a part of the part 2, I'm going to start with something called focus and prioritization. On the focus and prioritization, the project managers commonly complain that they feel overwhelmed by the number of things to do and the barrage of information that occurs in the project. So this study was to understand, when it comes to the information overload, how do you react to it? And if I talk about the screen that's in front of you, the question asked, how do you rate this project manager's overall responsiveness to your project related request? That means this question is asked to the stakeholders, which include senior management, which include teams, etc. 541 responses, out of which 81 from alpha, 460 from non-alpha, and the percentage from stakeholders of alpha, 88% of this overall responsiveness to the project from the stakeholders of alpha, and 49% to non-alpha. What does it mean? That indirectly mean that alpha project managers are able to focus on the projects that they have at their end. I'm not saying those people would only have 1 or 2 projects only to look at. They can have multiple projects, but when I'm a stakeholder on one of your projects, I'm the stakeholder only on that project. And what I care about is your responsiveness to that particular project, because I'm a stakeholder. So good. Yes, still can be improved on 88%. Yeah, we still have a gap of 20%. But non-alpha guys, still 50-50. So that's a lot of improvement areas there. In fact, 75% of the project managers who participated in the study cited the biggest challenge or a key source of job-related stress was information overload. If you look at the emails that the alpha PMs responded, they responded to very few emails a day on an average. They spent very less time in the meetings. In fact, I have a quote of one of the alpha project managers here. He said that when I begin in a project, the first thing that I do is to write down the top 2 or 3 critical success factors, so-called CSFs, and post them in a place where the team can regularly see them. The team can look at them. The team can take a call. Probably team can help project manager to ensure that those are consistently met, or all your deliverables related to that project are inconsistent with those 2 or 3 critical success factors, which are being reviewed in weekly meetings. At the same time, it says that the alpha project managers didn't spend much of the time in a meeting. So how is this possible? We say that 90% of the time the project managers spend in communication. And the contradictory scenario says that the project manager shouldn't spend much of the time in the meetings. I'll let you think over it. I'm sure you have an answer, but I'll let you mull over it for a while I go on. So there are 2 key takeaways on the focus side of it. The key important takeaway for us as alpha or non-alpha project managers. 1, ability to sift through the massive amount of overload that you have. How much is important, how much is not important? How quickly can you go through the information? For example, let's say if you get 100 emails a day, are you able to clear 100 emails? Point number 1. 2, are you required to clear all 100 emails? What happens if you don't? If you don't, look at it. The number of emails that you have not responded back, out of them, probably 10 to 20% of them could fire back on you in terms of stakeholder calling directly. Hey, didn't you see my email that I sent 4 hours back or 2 hours back? Right? It happens to all of us. So there are 2 aspects to it. Are we supposed to be in front of emails always? Of course not. Right? So how effectively do we use time in terms of looking at emails? My practical experience and gut feel says probably twice in a day maximum, right? Not more than that. Minimum twice in a day at least to look at what's happening around. Thrice in a day could be okay, but not more than that, ideally speaking. But then you might say, Saurabh, how could we judge whether we are really effective if we don't respond to the emails? And how the next important aspect come to prioritization. So then you need to know how to prioritize your emails. I'm not going to take much of your time on this, but a question on the survey which was asked, how many non-spam emails do you receive per working day? So now average was about 110 odd emails from 495 people that responded back. And the follow-up question was, do you carry any wireless device that allows you to send and receive email from your PC or your wireless device away from your PC? So alpha, interestingly, say 24%. I mean, this is great. This is an average which probably is a world average, but most likely in India, this kind of an average would be pretty high on alpha side. They all would be carrying cell phones which have emails enabled, maybe 80% plus. Now, emails are one of the biggest potential distraction. So a lot of people complain me, sort of, we are not able to focus on emails or not able to focus on work because of a continuous engagement with emails. And I agree with them. How do we resist? Only a practice tells you. But then if you resist, then how do you not respond to a prioritized email which is lying in your mailbox? So that's something which was very interesting survey which was done, and there are good amount of inputs which has been given by Andy on this. The next specific question was, how many hours per week you spend in a meeting? 775 responses. The alpha average was 7.25 hours, non-alphas 9.2 hours. Not too not too distant, but The negative feeling amongst the alpha group was, more the number of hours spent in a meeting on an average per week, worse it is, or it tends to be unproductive for us. Lesser the number of hours spent in the meetings, better for us. On the contrary, some of the people thought otherwise as well. More the number of hours spent in a meeting, better for us because we are up to date. So I'm not talking about I'm not talking about whether it's a traditional life cycle project or agile life cycle project. I'm not talking about that right now. I'm talking about projects on an average. Even if you talk about the agile manner, right? You have a stand-up meeting in the morning. You have a stand-up meeting in the evening. Very quick, 10 minutes, max 15, not a half an hour at all. And for those kind of agile projects, we know what's happening around. So worst case scenario, half an hour a day. That should be okay when you talk about, let's say, 2.5 hours a week, or if you include your retro, then probably about let's say max 5 hours a week, which is still okay. It's just still good enough. So, and unscheduled meetings with the stakeholders, your weekly status update, your weekly status report call with your customer. So when you think about the kind of focus on the projects, the alpha project managers felt that we are better placed when we have a complete control over the communication. Two, when we know what our priorities are. And three, we know our job well. And the last and the most important, we know how to manage our time in a day. So, I have a one beautiful statement on one of the alphas named Brandon. He says, when I begin on the project, the first thing I do for every project is I identify the priorities for the project. And the priorities can come down from the strategies which are being carved out at the top. So the alignment that we spoke in the past, sometime back, becomes very important there. And once you have that alignment, it becomes very easy to prioritize my tasks. The second pointer which I could display it in your slide is I set the project priorities early on and post it on wall, right? So that's something which we covered up. Third, strategic categories remain silent, whereas tactical priorities regularly changes. What does it mean? This means that your strategic priorities, which are very important to the project, and you rank 1, 2, 3 out of 1 to 10, those do not change much because it's already strategized. Having said that, you have your tactical goals which might change or which might get reprioritized over a period of time because they are tied to the execution, depending on the how well do you execute the project, probably within your control or outside your control. That defines how frequently you should be changing your tactical priorities. And of course, in those who are working on agile project management know this very well in terms of product backlog, how this shift. But for the others who get into traditional project management, for them it becomes very difficult to reprioritize, right? So that's something which is important as well. Now the next area was approach. So on the approach, basically we talk about is what approach do the project managers take on the project? What is the importance of a planning for them? Is there a difference between the percentage of time they give in planning versus execution? Do we really say that 10% perspiration, 90% inspiration, or vice versa? All those things come as approach. We'll give a couple of examples on this in terms of survey questions. So the first survey question talks about ranked the importance of the pre-execution project planning at a huge 98% response, almost from both the alpha and non-alphas, saying yes, this is very important before pre-execution. So I think everybody knows about it. So the another fact-finding table that I could put in front of you, the process group wise. So you all probably most of you would know there are 5 processes in project management. When you look at the project management body of knowledge: initiating, planning, execution, controlling, monitoring and control, and closure, right? So alphas and non-alphas, the percentage of the labor hours allocated. So alpha said 2% in initiation, 21% planning, 69% in execution, 5% in monitoring control, 3% in closure. Now this is the allocation of the labor hours in terms of percentage in the entire project, which means you really go with that typical bell curve, the normal distribution. It's just that if I have to combine my normal distribution with little bit of a skew on the planning side, because controlling and closure are very less number of hours, it's basically a right skew, right, on the normal distribution side. So if I just combine my planning and execution, it's a 90% of the project labor is been assigned or allocated in planning and execution, 69 plus 21. That's a huge one. So we all know where to do our Pareto, right? The question on approach which was asked, a very beautiful question. I loved it. Hands-on approach of a project manager. And this is a most common question I've all seen through my career. How many of project managers prefer pure project manager role versus how many prefer hands-on PM role? When I say hands-on, it refers to technical characteristics of the project or a technical domain expertise on the project. Hands-on, not just the domain knowledge, but hands-on expertise. And the percentages in front of you, the pure prefer pure PM role, 66% people who responded back in favor, and prefer hands-on PM role, 34% towards that. Now, one of the quotes that I got from one of the alpha project managers, he said, his name is Jeff. He said, before I become a project manager, I spent over 20 years in software development. So I still enjoy wading into the code from time to time. It seems to be a big trend today for the project managers to manage outside of that domain, but I find to be a critical advantage to me, and I enjoy being hands-on. Now, this is on the contrary to the other part of the projects, which talks about, sorry guys, just give me a moment, sorry, apologies. I'm so sorry. Okay, so which means the contrary, on the contrary, it says that, and probably even the project management body of knowledge also says that it's not necessary for you to have a hands-on project management experience on when you become a project manager. This is a contradiction actually. And if I show you a next screen, I'm sure you're going to get a little in an awkward zone. So when I talk about the senior management opinion about the same question on hands-on project management, only 22% of the senior management feel you should have a pure PM role. 78% still feel that my project manager should be hands-on. Now, this is a great delusion amongst us. I'm not sure how do we make this perception. It would be perception bias. How do we change this perception? But that's truth coming from a senior management. I'm sure those who are hands-on PM definitely enjoy when they come out of a technical background of 10 years, 15 years and become PM, definitely bear a good amount of fruit. But those who are not, right? I've seen project managers succeed as well, of course, but that doesn't mean that it is a must to have hands-on. It's quite advisable to have it. It's better. The another question which was fired was, over the last 5 years, on what percentage of the projects that you managed did you have a domain expertise when you began the project? So when you started your project, what percent of the projects that you managed that your domain expertise were there? So 820 responses, out of them, 87% prefer pure PM role and 71% prefer hands-on PM role. It's not too much of a difference, but it still says that the project managers are made from some kind of a domain expertise on an average, which means the construction background guys would manage construction projects, power background guys will manage power projects, IT background guys will manage IT projects on an average. If I do a cross-domain projects, will I be successful or not? And that's a question which is still in the field unanswered. And that's probably the area of focus for the next kind of a questionnaire for Andy. And the last on the approach was rank the importance of project manager being domain expert. 94% prefer pure PM role on that. 68% prefer hands-on PM role on that. So that was the approach part. And on another, so just to end up with the approach part of it, like to give one more anecdote from somebody. One of the senior manager now, he said there have been some groups who have pushed us to embrace domain independence in our project managers. And there has been a lot of hype around the claim that a domain independent project manager could do a better job than the domain expert. But I don't buy it. Surely they don't believe that domain neutrality is better for the management disciplines, or that project management is unique in this regard. We have a highly specialized product and highly specialized methodology. And for someone to come in and have to learn both from grounds up would be a real disadvantage for everybody. This is the observation from senior management, and no wonder why most of the senior managers preferred, 78% of them prefer their project managers to have the hands-on domain expertise. Yeah, so moving on to the last piece for the day that I wanted to cover and open this forum for Q&A was relationship and conflicts aspect. On the relationship and conflict side, in fact, on the relationship, it talks about relationship everybody. Downwards, upwards, crosswards, everywhere. The recurring theme of this alpha group was that they relied on informal network to accomplish their formal project objective rather than only relying on their assigned teams or the known stakeholders. So informality, as we mentioned in communication as well, played a very important role in building the relationships. The question here was asked, how would you rate this PM's ability to identify, understand, and satisfy your individual goals for the project? 92% from alpha side, 64% non-alphas. This primarily talks about whether you are really able to carve out that kind of a relationship that satisfy your individual goals for the projects that you have already identified. Alphas were pretty efficient in it. Non-alphas yet to be caught up. Now, one of the nuggets, piece of the nuggets I could read was relationships are like muscles. You have to use them in order for them to get stronger. I felt like I was helping the organization by keeping an important project on track, and ultimately that's my job. The project manager understood. If I had approached this like I wanted to force an issue to head and try and pull rank, I would still be waiting for access to those databases. This way, all the relationships were strengthened or at least preserved by the time this was over. Little difficult statement. Yeah, I'll make it, I'll simplify it. It just says that uh, the effort that you put in building a relationship, formally or informally, more towards informally, goes a long way towards sustaining your project muscles, which you have built not during the life cycle of the project, probably life cycle of the product or a life cycle of the entire project plus operations, both. And a follow-up question which was asked to the stakeholders of the project manager: rate this project manager's performance at conflict resolution. Now, if I combine the relationship and conflicts, there would be some kind of a relationship or a link between the two. We'll come to that in a while. But a conflict resolution, and the typical question that I always ask people is, in the contemporary view of the project management, is conflict good or bad? And most of them say good. Yes, absolutely, it's good because we learn a lot from the conflict. But do we know how to resolve conflicts? Most of say yes, we know. I like the people who say no, because they're still learning how to manage conflict, because at times you may not be able to always apply your problem solving ability or the strategy to a conflict resolution. At times you need withdrawal, at times you need forcing, at times you need accommodation, right? And at times you need problem solving. So the conflict resolution PM's performance, 61% alphas, the PM's rating, and non-alphas 46%. Not too far, but still a way to go. This was the perception of the stakeholders, that 61% feel that PMs are good at conflict resolution. That means we are not yet there as alpha PMs. We need to learn a lot towards first understanding the conflict. Having understood, identifying the bottlenecks or the root causes, and try to resolve them. And I always keep saying that corrective action, preventive action, in terms of your monitoring of the projects, you keep your focus and the target on your project objectives, be it a conflict, be it a relationship, be it your focus, or be it a prioritization on the projects. So the last, I think probably that was the last one that I had in my slide. But on the conflict, I think I should probably give you one more experience of another project manager. And he says that my way of dealing with the conflict is to not let it see the light of a day. I make every project decision actionable. Every assignment I make has accountability and authority built in. When conflict does come up, I get to it quickly. If conflict is the spark, time is a gasoline. I got into an argument with another manager years ago, and over time, it took on all of the characteristics of a feud. It became bigger than both of us, and that person won't speak to me to this day. Pretty much interesting, right? From the conversation that he had. Yeah, it's right. So let it go. So that let go approach also need to be there, as your how much you can chew and how much you can digest in terms of the bad experiences of yours in the past. Probably you should be able to let go in future. You can't live with that baggage of information, or bad experiences. I think I pretty much I wanted to restrict my time till this moment, and I'm going to ask for a quick few questions in the remaining period of time. So those who have a questions, feel free, think through it, raise your hand, and I'll unmute all of you. Yes, Sasi. I'm sorry. Uh, Sasi, you wanted to ask question or Sai? Okay, that was Sai. Yes, Sai. Go ahead. Sai, I think you are on a mute, if I'm not wrong, or did I mute you? Sai, you wanted to ask question? Uh, guys, can you hear me? No? Hey, Nandan, are you still there? Can you hear me? Joseph, am I audible? Hello? I think either I think I've got some audio problem, it seems. Can't I think Joseph is trying to say something, but I can't hear you, Joseph. So those who are on a chat probably can pose your questions on the chat. I'm already on the chat. Not able to connect? Okay. Let me pull out a poll then, at least. I'm going to start a poll. If you can just answer, guys, if you don't mind. What we could do is probably I'll share the email ID of mine, and you can put your questions to me on this, and I'll be most happy to answer. My email ID is saurabh_parikh@yahoo.com. Okay. My pleasure to answer the questions that you have in case you are not unable to communicate with me right now. Right, feel free and write back to me. I guess there is some problem in. All right, so I got a question from Ganesh. If one has to have a domain knowledge, then why would someone put so much effort become certified project manager? Excellent question, Ganesh. Thanks. Ganesh, first of all, am I audible to you? Excellent, Ganesh. Thanks. That means everybody else can hear me. It's only my problem at my end. Great, Ganesh. Thanks. So I'm going to repeat Ganesh's question. If one has to have a domain knowledge, then why a PM? So my question back to you, Ganesh. Having a domain knowledge, so let's say you are SME, Ganesh, 15 years experience in one of the technologies. How does it differentiate, you yourself as an individual than the project manager who will be having a similar experience of 15 years? So, I know even if you say, tell me, I won't be able to hear it. You can type your thoughts. The challenge here is, Ganesh, we are talking about two different things. One, we are talking about the complete technical aspect of the experience, which even if you have, let's say, 30 years experience, but you may not be able to manage a project. When I talk about managing a project, you're talking about managing 10 different knowledge areas across 5 groups. But when you're talking about 30 years as a technical core SME, I've seen my colleagues in US and UK who carry 25 and 30 years experience as a distinguished technical expert. That's a kind of a designation they have. They may not necessarily be good PMs. So it really depends, Ganesh, whether you choose your technical line or you choose a project management line. If you are a project manager, okay, forget certified or non-certified right now. Your stakeholders expect you, okay, to know the domain knowledge for sure. And they prefer you to have hands-on on that. At the same time, let's say you, Ganesh, having a 20 years experience in the field and a technical field, can I make him as a PM? Okay, I'm the sponsor of the project. I'll look at Ganesh interpersonal relationship first. How is the relationship building ability of Ganesh with other people, other stakeholders? That's the first thing that I'm going to see. That's what matters apart from the technique. So my technical preference on your domain, take a second step, but not ignored at all. See the stakeholders perception, Ganesh. Those stakeholders or senior management do not neglect your technical domain expertise, but they say that, okay, if you are a great PM, or if you are a great personal in terms of managing other teams, in terms of having interpersonal abilities, vis-a-vis a complete isolated SME, that's going to make a difference. I hope that answers your question. Okay. The another thing, Ganesh, to just to think through from your question is, you having a good amount of domain knowledge, on the technical side of it, then your question can read as, do you need to put more number of hours or less number of hours in terms of preparation to get certified? If that's your question as well, then it really depends. It really depends on you. Because you're certified, to become certified project manager, you probably just need to go through the framework like PMBOK, right? And that just do not talk about technicalities at all, unfortunately, or probably fortunately for some. So that's completely different ball game. But yes, since you have the technical know-how, you understand, or you have a tendency to understand processes better. I can tell you that. Hence, you need lesser effort comparative to the others. Might need, of course, but it depends on the person to person, how they take up. Ganesh, hope that answers your question. You could say yes and no, being honest. And if it's no, you can pose your another question. Okay, so you're saying, but I'm asking in terms of zero domain knowledge, but extremely good project management knowledge and certification too. This will not fly, Ganesh. Domain knowledge is essential. I said hands-on, meaning your hands got dirty on some work. Like for example, I'm creating a plinth of a building, or a foundation work of a building, or I'm developing a particular code using .NET or Java, right? That I'm a coder. That is my hands-on, where I get my hands dirty. Having no knowledge at all, I don't understand .NET at all, I don't understand Java, and I have to manage a project. Sorry, this is not going to fly. Okay, so now you have a valid question, and that's exactly what we spoke in my presentation today. So Ganesh is asking, say domain knowledge is in a different field and one is trying to get into something different. Yes, you can get into that different, provided you have that domain knowledge as well. For example, my experience on the managing so-called EPC projects versus IT projects. Okay, if I have to manage an EPC project and I'm an IT guy, or vice versa, how do I shuffle between? The only way to manage that kind of a power project for one of the great companies is to ensure that you're completely, it's like you're a champion in electrical or power engineering in terms of at least the knowledge, though you might not have got hands-on doing the electrician job or electrical engineering job. And yes, I've managed that. So you can very well. If I can, you can definitely, guys. Okay, anybody else, any other question? No problem, Ganesh. Please feel free and just type it out for me, because I guess the audio stopped working, it seems, but my mic is. So if you can't, if you think through something and you have a question, you can either forward it to Joseph, definitely for sure. He will forward, or you can directly use my email ID, saurabh_parikh@yahoo.com, and you can ask those questions. It's probably in last few minutes. If I can just open up a poll, guys, please help me. Those who are there on the system, I'm going to launch the polls. Sorry, I'm not sure if that also works. Guys, do you see my poll coming up on your screen? Ganesh, do you see my poll? Or you are on a phone, maybe. Okay. Mm, so I think it probably the polls are not getting launched, so it's having some problem. Yeah, but anyways, so I think, yeah, you can't see the poll. Thanks, Samol. No problem, Amol. My three questions on the poll were very simple. You could just think through it. And the first question was, how did you find the session today? That was the first question, and there were uh, you know, uh, four different alternatives: poor, average, good, excellent. So you can either choose to answer on a chat. How was the session? How did you find the session? Poor, average, good, excellent. Those who are in front of the screen. Okay. Thank you, Ganesh. Thank you, Ceci. Yeah, I know you're not able to see the poll. I'm also not able to launch the poll, Ceci. Sorry about that. Second question was, uh, how effectively can you apply the learnings from today's session to your practical projects? How effectively can you apply learnings from today's session to your practical projects? And the four points were, four alternatives were: can't apply at all, nice to learn the concepts, however I'm doubtful whether I can, definitely can apply, and I can most certainly apply in all my projects. So there are four different options. Think through it. I don't probably need your answer right now. You can ponder your thoughts over it. Whether you can't apply at all, or it's nice to learn the concept. However, I'm doubtful whether I should be able to, or I can apply them. Definitely, I can apply in some of my projects, and I can most certainly apply on all my projects. I'm sure most of you could, be in the either nice to learn the concept, however I'm doubtful, or definitely can apply in some of my projects. If I hear the response, I can most certainly apply, as Ceci is saying, this is amazing. Yeah, it differs, right? It differs. It may not apply to my some of the projects, absolutely. So that's the reason I've given this choice. You not need to be, just for sake of saying, say I cannot, or I can most certainly apply in all my projects. Don't need to. Great. And the last question that I have had was another wonderful question. To what extent are you alpha PM? 1 to 25%, 25 to 50%, 50 to 75%, 75 to 100%. This is your self-judgment, self-assessment. I'm going to repeat the question. To what extent are you alpha PM? 1 to 25, that's the first choice. 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100. Do a self-retro. Do a self-intro. Expect. Do a self-analysis. Do a self-evaluation, guys. I'm going to end the session with this. It was great talking to you. We have this WebEx session recorded, so I can always request Joseph to share a link, those who want it, or those who your friends who would have missed out the session. And just to repeat once again, if you have any further questions, please feel free and drop me an email on my Saurabh_Parikh@yahoo.com. I could see some of the experiences from you. One, Amol says, most definitely applicable. I've experienced benefits of establishing informal relationship with my project stakeholders. Very good, Amol. Excellent. Very well said. Yeah, that makes a difference. I would just say that makes a difference. Ceci say 50 to 75%. Great, Ceci. Keep it up. Amol again says, I would assess myself to be 75% on the Alpha PM. Still many skills to acquire to consider. I agree with you, Amol. And even to be honest, I do not say I am 100%. Absolutely not. Otherwise, I would stop learning, to be honest. So, yeah, I'm still learning, guys, just like you. Right. So, any more thing on the chat? As if I have not bored you enough to left. But great talking to you on this second part of the Alpha Project Manager. I definitely recommend this book of the great Andy Grove. Those who can grab a copy, really worth, right? Can get a lot of details. I just gave you a tip of an iceberg in these 2 sessions, right? All right. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Have a great day ahead and great week ahead.